poppin'? I'm Logan Murdoch. That is Howard Beck. Welcome to a web-exclusive version of Real Ones, where we discover and find out who was real and who was fake going into the postseason. Now, it's time to talk about the Los Angeles Lakers, who have a weird distinction once again this season of being a play-in team with championship aspirations, with LeBron a year older and AD also a year older. That leads to my first question for you, Howard. How do the Lakers continue to build around an aging LeBron who has openly talked about retirement, who has talked about how this is might be his last stand without giving us an expiration date? How do the Lakers continue to operate under those types of circumstances?
Yeah, I think when you're 39 in the NBA, the retirement on the horizon discussion is kind of unavoidable. It could be any day, week, month, or year at this stage. So it puts the Lakers in a really difficult position, right? Like, here we are, we're talking about them as a play-in team, but as you noted, the rare play-in team with title aspirations, obviously the Warriors have that too. It's a funny thing, and shout out to the Warriors and Lakers and even the Heat for over the last couple of years making the play-in actually more than just a curiosity, right? It's not just who's going to get 7th or 8th. It's like, well, one of these teams might actually make a run, and the Heat did. So the thing with LeBron at this age is the Lakers can't get around the fact that he's still their best player by far. Your best player shouldn't be your 39-year-old, but he is. And they lean on Anthony Davis as much as they can. They've brought in other scorers like D'Angelo Russell, and Austin Reeves has developed on their watch, and they've got other ways they can go. But at the end of the day, in this league, it's still about your superstar. And your superstar in this case is 39 years old. Couple of quick reference points, though. LeBron was, as of this recording, he's 7th in estimated plus minus, which is one of the better advanced all-in-one stats out there. 7th in the league in EPM, 7th in box plus minus. He's still one of the most effective players in the league. And that puts them in a bind because you can't rely on a 39-year-old night in, night out, especially in the regular season, as much as you would of a 29-year-old. But they also can't just go out and get his successor. And they've got a really high-paid co-star in Anthony Davis already. So they're just, it's kind of like, as long as LeBron James is with them, making this money and producing these kind of numbers, you're almost only going as far as he can take you, because there's nobody to hand off to. There's nobody else you can get and squeeze in under the NBA's rules. And so you are what you are, and you hope that the supporting cast is enough to help LeBron get where he wants to go.
It's interesting you bring up the supporting cast. Now, last year, they traded for a boatload of players in getting D'Angelo Russell, getting Jared Vanderbilt, and then they stocked around, and Rui Hachimura, and stocked around that, around a aging core that you speak of, and it looked like it was going to be good. The surrounding core for the Lakers have been up and down throughout this season. What do you expect from them this postseason, and can they kind of help carry those non-LeBron, non-AD minutes in a way that they used to do that last season? Do you see that actually happening this year?
So that's the issue, right? There are going to be the non-LeBron, non-AD minutes. And, D'Angelo Russell has been a fabulous scorer at times in this league, but there's a reason a bunch of teams have moved on from him. He can be really frustrating too, and very streaky and a little erratic, both, professionally and otherwise. So it's hard to put a lot on him. Austin Reeves is going to give you something some nights, but you don't know which of those guys, right? You might get a 20, 25-point game from Spencer Dinwiddie, who they brought in mid-season, but you're not going to get that every night. And so that's the thing. And they've got a lot of really good, solid role players, but how many truly, I don't want to say great, because we're talking about role guys, but above average to great role guys within the role guy sphere, right? This is not a roster that blows people away once you get past their top two. And they've also had injuries, right? They brought in Gabe Vincent last summer to bring in another playmaker and a defensive-minded guard. And Gabe Vincent's been hurt for much of the season. Jared Vanderbilt, who you mentioned, Logan, hurt for much of the season, and he's a really key defensive piece, an area that they sometimes struggle with. So, who's their ultimate 7, 8, 9-man group as the playoffs unfold, assuming they get out of the play-in? we'll see.
And we talk about Anthony Davis. He is probably the most polarizing player on the Lakers since, I guess, Pau Gasol, in the way that he plays in his ups and downs in the postseason. How big of a postseason is this for him? Because last year he played really well in spurts, especially defensively, and also played really well against Jokic. Jokic just was better than him against the Nuggets last season. With LeBron aging, with him trying to find his game as he ages and get support, what do the Lakers need from Anthony Davis in this particular postseason?
Remember earlier in Anthony Davis's career, like in New Orleans, and even when he was making this move to the Lakers, like, this guy's going to be a perennial MVP candidate for the rest of his career. LeBron talked about at times like, I'm going to hand off to him. I'm going to take a secondary role. It's all about AD. We've never really seen, like, it happens at times. It happens in moments, and even for maybe a stretch here and there, and it might happen in the playoffs. But like, he's just never been able to sustain that. The good news is he played his most games this season since 2017-18. Like,
really healthy.
Like, AD was actually, healthy. And also, by the way, not always healthy, banged up, but playing through it a lot, which I think people had questions about earlier in his career. The question really is this, and this postseason I'm not sure if this reveals much of it or not. I feel like we kind of know who he is by now. He's 31 years old. But to the extent that the curtain's coming down soon for LeBron, whenever that is. Maybe it's another year, maybe it's 2. But like, at some point, there does need to be more of a shift to Anthony Davis, and eventually a handoff to Anthony Davis, unless they're going to go, poach somebody else at some point. Which the Lakers, it's what they do. They probably will. But it's an important postseason for Anthony Davis because, look, they're not getting out of the play-in without both of those guys at their best, and they're not winning a first-round series and upsetting a top seed, whoever that may be, without Anthony Davis playing at that superstar level that we see glimpses of still. And look, it comes down to, like, especially if they're going to have to, eventually somebody has to take out Denver, right? That's the whole thing in the whole Western Conference.
In theory, yes. In practice, I'm not sure.
Yeah. So, but if it's going to be a rematch with Denver, who they saw in the conference finals and got swept by, I know it was like the historically close series, all this stuff, whatever. They got swept. Anthony Davis has to at least be able to, like, slow down Jokic and beat up on him at the other end, right? Like, he needs to win that matchup, or at least make it a draw. But so yeah, I mean, I think there's always scrutiny of Anthony Davis.
One of the things that I tricked myself into thinking last offseason was, the Lakers have a very improved bench. Like you said, they have a lot more defensive options with Vanderbilt and a lot of other guys. And I thought that was going to be a recipe for them to have a better record in the regular season. Maybe get LeBron to be able to rest a little bit more. Same with Anthony Davis. Now it just seems like they did all of that to be in the same position that they were last season, in the play-in and trying to get back into the postseason. Because of that, they have to go through an even harder path than if they were maybe a 1 or 2 or 3 seed going into this postseason. Everything that I think about the Lakers, one question always comes up. Do they have the legs to get through a Western Conference postseason that's as vaunted as this one? With all these teams, you got young teams like Minnesota, OKC, then you have the establishment teams in Dallas and Denver. Do the Lakers, they have the talent to be able to get to the Western Conference Finals, but do they have the legs and ultimately the stamina to get through these playoff rounds that are just so hard and vaunted?
It's a fair question because LeBron is 39, and because even Anthony Davis is in his early 30s, and these guys have got a lot of miles on them. But I think one up, we know the playoffs, the schedule's spaced out. You've got more time to recover, but also, like, it's funny, we focus so much on a team's top line when we think about their age, but look at the rest of this rotation. Like, D'Angelo Russell's 27, Austin Reeves is 25, Rui Hachimura is 25, Taurean Prince is 29, Spencer Dinwiddie's 30. Like, most of the supporting cast is pretty spry still. Like, I'm not overly concerned, I don't think, with them having the legs. It's more just the fact that, as we talked about earlier, the burden is still on LeBron at this late stage of his career to carry them every single night. Like, it's unlikely that you're going to have that you're going to win a game with LeBron just going for like 15, 7, and 7. I don't know that you're winning that unless you just had an absolutely explosive night from D'Angelo Russell, Spencer Dinwiddie, somebody else. So that's the real issue to me. Is it's still much how big of a burden rests on your oldest player.
This all roads lead still back to LeBron, even when I ask that question. At this stage now, he has one title with the Los Angeles Lakers. What will his if the career ended right now? We didn't even get to the playoffs. What is LeBron's legacy in the purple and gold at this point?
It's such a funny thing, right? Like it's a cliche for all of us in media to talk about legacy, and LeBron's legacy has been talked about ad nauseum for like years and years and years already. But it's different when you're talking about it within the context of just the Lakers, because it's the franchise of Magic and Kareem and Shaq and Kobe and Jerry West and everybody else. You know, he got them their championship that they went out and got him so that they could restore their luster, right? And they did. I think he did what he needed to do. Obviously, no one's ever going to be satisfied with getting just one when you've got LeBron James and he's still playing at the level he is. But he did come there as presumably the last stop in his career at a late stage of his career. I think if anybody expected multiple titles as a given, that would always have been a little bit of a stretch. So I don't know. This is more of a question for Laker fans because I think they were slow to warm to him. And I think it's happened over time. But I do wonder. I wonder if you could tap into the Laker fan hive mind, where would they put LeBron? What would they think? This sounds like a cop out, but I think it's like not for us to decide. I think it's for the people who actually, root for that team to decide where LeBron ultimately fits in their pantheon.
Now, for the moment we've all been waiting for, Howard, are the Lakers real or are they fake?
Oh, it pains me to say this with a team that still has LeBron James playing at this level, but they're fake. I mean, it's hard to call a play-in team real when it comes to contending for the title. So, I give them an outside chance, right? Like, they did make the conference finals last spring. Granted, the West wasn't as strong then. There is a chance, and they're not your average, ninth place team. But they've been middle of the pack for most of the season in net rating, middle of the pack in offensive rating, defense. Like, they've just been middle of the pack. Like, they're fine, but I don't know that they're good enough to knock off, especially the Nuggets or maybe even some of the other top seeds.
I'm with you, Howard. They're fake as $4 bills. It just is what it is at this point. They have reached their ceiling. I don't think that they have the legs. I think that they've shown us time and time again this season who they are. And they're a team that can get a really good team on a bad night, or they can, but I don't think they have the legs to be able to sustain that going forward.